They tried to make me lose my dog in 24 hours, and the whole neighborhood watched like it was someone else's TV show. My name is Jack Hale, and for a long time my job was finding things that didn't want to be found. I tracked signals in deserts, red metal in sand, and trusted dogs to read things my eyes could not. Now my most dangerous mission is Teddy, a golden retriever who thinks his greatest enemy is a squirrel and his proudest achievement is nudging my hand when my chest gets loud. Teddy is a service dog. He does the quiet work nobody sees, anchors my breath, steadies my steps, turns the thunder in my head into weather I can survive. Our little house sits on a tidy street where the biggest threat used to be a bored delivery driver. We paid our HOA fees, trimmed our hedges, and learned the rhythm of suburban peace. Peace in a place like this comes with a rule book, and the person holding that book was Karen Finch, the HOA president. To her, a mailbox with the wrong font was moral decay. To her, a blade of grass above 2 inches was insurrection. It was a plain morning. The sprinklers were doing their rhythmic dance. Sunlight cut the sidewalk into bright tiles. Teddy was sniffing a patch of earth near Mrs. Gable's prized roses. Leash loose at my side, tail low and considerate. Then a delivery truck backfired. A sharp crack that felt like someone had thrown a rock at the day. My shoulders clenched, my breath caught. Teddy barks once, a single sharp sound, not a rallying cry, not aggression. His way of saying, "I'm here, you're not alone." One bark. That was all it took. Karen's door exploded open. She poured onto her perfectly manicured lawn like a commander on parade, visor set, as if she'd never learned to blink. "Jack Hale," she snapped, in a voice that seemed to file at the edges. "You cannot control that animal. I breathed the way they teach you, in through the nose, out through the mouth." "He's a service dog," I said. He was startled. "You will be warned," she hissed to anyone who would listen. She made the street her audience, and the street cleared its throat like a courtroom. A police cruiser rolled down the block. Officer Mason and Officer Rivera, they did the rounds here, pulled curbside. Karen saw them like a prize. Her eyes shone with a thing I'd later learned to recognize: opportunity. She told the story with the slow, practiced cadence of someone who rehearsed misery like a talent. He lunged. He threatened me. He chased children. She painted Teddy as a wolf, and me as the careless father. Teddy sat by my leg, his head cocked, confusion in his eyes. He tapped my knee with his shoulder like he always does. The pressure that cuts through the noise. The officers were tired. They didn't want paperwork, and they didn't want drama. "Ma'am, it's a dog on a leash," Officer Mason said. "He seems calm right now." But calm only lasts while witnesses are watching. Karen shrieked, "He must be registered as dangerous. He must be muzzled." While the officers looked at their shoes and argued about paperwork, Karen moved. She had a canister in her hand, something cheap and small she could hide in a pocket like a lie. Before I could react, she aimed it at Teddy's face and pressed. A fine mist hit him like someone throwing a jar of glass. He yelped, a sound of surprise, so raw it tore the morning. He stumbled, pawed at his eyes, whined like a thing that had been betrayed. Something chemical, bitter, sharp, a cheap perfume undercut with ammonia, filled the space around us. I dropped to my knees and tried to flush his eyes. The officers, now awake, asked for the canister. Officer Rivera handed me a saline bottle. "Flush. Now." We did what we could on the curb while Karen smirked like she'd just won a small private war. Later, the can went into evidence, and the lab would call it what it was. Not just a citronella canister, as she declaimed, but a spray with capsaicin concentrate, an irritant. But in that moment, the neighborhood inhaled itself into silence. Someone took a picture. I took pictures. I documented everything because experience had taught me that outrage looks good on social media, and even better on paper. I filed the report online. It felt thin, an electronic whisper into a loud municipal machine, but it was a brick in a wall. The next morning, I thought the world had no more surprises. I was wrong. A county animal control van rolled into the driveway like an eviction notice. Officer Ortiz stepped up to the porch with a clipboard, his shoes making the same tired sound I'd heard at 1,000 checkpoints. "Mr. Hale, there's a report," he said, reading from a sheet like a prayer. "Your dog is alleged to have bitten a child." The words hit like blunt force. There was no child. There was no witness who'd seen teeth. A lie had been folded into a neat little packet and handed to county officials. The report, it turned out, included a sworn statement from someone who claimed a child was hurt and quickly taken away. It was a ghost designed to be impossible to disprove on the spot. Procedures existed. If a child is alleged injured, quarantine rules kick in. Officer Ortiz looked at my dog's current rabies vaccination, my handler paperwork, and then he gave me 2 horrible choices. Quarantine Teddy at a county shelter, a place of concrete and barking that would break a service dog S-trust, or quarantine him at home under strict conditions. No walks. No contact bright signage that would mark our house like a plague. He handed me an orange sign that read, "Dangerous Animal." It felt like someone had branded my front door. He also told me there was an accelerated emergency process. If the complainant filed for an immediate destruction order, a supervisor and magistrate could sign to take Teddy within a day. 24 hours, he said. You have 24 hours to submit evidence before a supervisor signs an emergency order. There it was, a deadline, a timer, a sentence that hung over Teddy like a hand. I looked at him, and he looked at me, with all the steady, bright love a dog can hold. I clung to my training like a rope. I started canvassing. I moved with the methodical patience of someone who used to map terrain before a mission, map the scene, identify cameras, knock on doors. Mrs. Gable, who had the roses, shook her head and spoke of fear. "I won't get on Karen's bad side," she whispered. Neighbors closed doors. A young couple who lived across the street said their subscription might have lapsed. Their doorbell may not have recorded. Duke, a burly man who polished his truck and protected his lawn, claimed his camera was acting up. Every excuse smelled like a choice. Midnight brought two strangers to my yard in HOA polos, taping fake urgent flyers to mailboxes. I filmed them. Evidence is best when it's still dripping. Video and flyers make a story look like fact. I saved everything, every tiny bruise of proof. I drove to animal control mid-afternoon with a folder heavy with photos. Teddy US, swollen eyes, the lab intake receipt for the spray, and the flyer ID. Filmed at midnight, and affidavits from a neighbor who said she'd seen the spray. Someone who finally found courage. Supervisor Barnes read through my packet and said she could hold the emergency order off if I produced credible counter-evidence by midnight. No promises. The clock was a drum. I called anyone who might have captured the morning. Delivery drivers, landscapers, a jogger who ran the route at dawn. At 11 that night, a message pinged. An anonymous number, a short file, and a single line. Doorbell cam. I didn't want to get involved, but this was wrong. The clip was shaky, vertical, filmed from a front porch down the block. It showed a flash of movement, a hand raised with a small canister, Karen's angle. The spray, then Teddy stumbling. The audio was muffled, but the image had the clarity of truth. I salvaged what I could of people's courage. Mr. Miller, the young guy who Dee said the subscription might have lapsed, changed his tune when I put the piece on the table. "I checked. It saved everything," he said, voice smaller. "There's the clip." Duke, who'd slammed his door later, when confronted with neighbors standing around the video on a phone, muttered something about being pressured and wouldn't meet my eyes. Some doors close, others open, and the ones that open in the right direction matter more. The emergency hearing was a small room with fluorescent lights and a stack of folders that smelled like coffee and worry. The complaint sat on one side. My counter packet sat on the other. A magistrate listened with that particular neutrality the law trains you to wear. It's a coat that can be heavy or freeing depending on the evidence. I played the doorbell clip, handed over the lab receipt for the can, the photos, the sworn affidavit from a neighbor who'd been afraid but now chose truth. Karen S. lawyer, because of course she had one, argued the usual. A dangerous animal, community safety, hearsay. Her voice was practiced, polished, weaponized civility. But the camera had no need for practice. The clip showed the spray, the stumble, and then the look on her face when officers asked her for the can. The lab showed capsaicin in the can. A sworn affidavit contradicted the phantom child claim. The supposed mother was located and said no child had been taken that morning. The magistrate leaned forward. "Given the video evidence, the lab result, and the affidavits," she said, "the emergency destruction order is denied." Relief is a loud, private thing. I felt it in my legs first, like someone had cut a rope. Teddy thumped his tail against my knee and leaned on me like we both passed a test we never wanted to take. But winning wasn't the same as forgetting. The HOA convened a review. Karen was stripped of the architectural review chair and issued fines for misuse of HOA process and for distributing false emergency notices. Neighbor Duke apologized in a short, awkward email that said more about fear than contrition. Some neighbors came by to leave small envelopes of dog treats and notes. "We are sorry we didn't, but helped sooner." Those things mattered too. Admission, even small, is a kind of repair. The emotional cost was real. Teddy had to see the vet. His eyes healed in weeks, but his trust took longer. The first few walks after the spray he flinched at surprises the way a veteran flinches at fireworks. I learned, the hard way, that training and love are both necessary armor, but they cut different ways. In the quiet after, I started knocking on doors for different reasons. I organized a small neighborhood meeting about safety and rights. I spoke about evidence and courage and the easy cruelty of small authorities, people who were scared to sign affidavits before now given a safe way to speak, and we drafted a set of common sense policies, clear reporting standards, neutral review, and a simple rule. Don't weaponize the neighborhood. I still keep the orange sign in a box in the attic. It is a reminder of how thin the line can be between normalcy and catastrophe. and of how fast a community can turn a lie into a life-or-death machine when fear mixes with authority. Teddy sleeps at my feet as I tell this. He's dreaming of squirrels, no doubt. Every time a truck backfires, I see his one quick bark and remember how fragile the world felt that day. I also remember what the neighbors who finally stepped forward taught me. Truth is small acts piled on top of one another until they hold up. If there's a moral here, it's twofold. First, document. If you think something could be twisted, make a record. Second, don't underestimate the quiet power of showing up. When one person takes a stand, others may still be silent, but that single stand can keep a dog from dying. That's a thing worth fighting for. My willpower almost cracked that day. I was balancing between righteous rage and the kind of restraint that keeps you out of jail. The only thing that got tested that day was my willpower not to ruin her entire existence. I didn't. I used something better. Evidence, patience, and a stubborn refusal to let a lie become law. Teddy eats his dinner and the world keeps making small noises. We go out, I keep my leash hand steady, and every now and then someone in the neighborhood will smile from across the street. Real now, and call out, "Morning, Jack." The war was short, the repair is longer, but the dog is here and that is everything.